Imagine if the secret to a good life wasn't giving a damn about everything, but choosing precisely what deserves your care. We live in an age of relentless positivity. Social media is flooded with motivational slogans, perfect beach sunsets, people selling the dream of unshakable happiness. It's intoxicating and exhausting. Because beneath that glossy optimism lurks a secret fear. What if I'm not good enough? What if I'm not happy enough? What if I'm falling behind? And so we scramble, we hustle, we optimize every moment, every thought, every emotion, till life becomes a performance we're too tired to keep up. But what if the problem isn't that we care too little, but that we care too much about too many things that don't matter? Mark Manson est, the subtle art of not giving a fuck is a slap in the face to that modern madness. It's a brash, funny, brutally honest book that exploded in popularity because it told people something they didn't want to hear, but desperately needed to. That happiness isn't about having no problems, it's about choosing better problems. That not giving a fuck isn't apathy, it's wisdom. The wisdom to say, this I will care about. That I will let go. Mark Manson isn't your usual self-help guru in a shiny suit. He is a former dating coach who realized he had no special answers to life, just a lot of stupid mistakes. He writes like a friend who cusses too much, drinks too much, but knows how to call out your bullshit with love. Why does this matter right now? Because we're drowning in choices, because attention is the new currency, because most of us have no idea what we truly value, so we let everyone else decide for us. We're more connected than ever, yet lonelier. We have more freedom than ever, yet we're paralyzed by anxiety. We're told to dream big, be special, never settle, yet feel emptier with each milestone we tick off. The Subtle Art is a counterintuitive guide to sanity in this chaos. This book isn't about teaching you how to not care about anything. It's about choosing carefully, ruthlessly, even painfully, what to care about. Because your time, energy, and fucks are limited. You can't solve every problem. You can't please everyone. You can't even control half the things you think you can. But you can decide what you're willing to suffer for. And that decision will shape your entire life. This is not a book that coddles you. It won't promise you success if you visualize it hard enough. It won't tell you you're special just for existing. It will demand that you get clear on your values, own your choices, and face life's brutal truths. And in doing so, it promises something even more valuable than comfort: clarity, peace, freedom. So if you're tired of pretending to be happy all the time, you're exhausted from caring about every little thing, if you want a life that feels meaningful instead of performative, let's go on this journey together, chapter by chapter, idea by idea. Not with hollow affirmations, but with real, sometimes uncomfortable wisdom. Because, as Mark Manson says, not giving a fuck does not mean being indifferent. It means being comfortable with being different. Ready to learn how to choose what deserves your fucks. Let's begin. We chase what eludes us because we're terrified of accepting who we are. Imagine you're stuck in a Chinese finger trap. You panic. You pull harder. The trap only tightens. It's only when you relax your grip, stop struggling, that you find freedom. That's how life works too. The harder you strive for happiness, the more it slips through your fingers. The more you crave success, the more painfully aware you are of your failure. Mark Manson opens his book with a stark idea he borrowed from Charles Bukowski, the self-destructive drunken poet whose gravestone reads, "Don't try." Not because effort is pointless, but because the desperate need to prove yourself is the real problem. Bukowski wrote furiously for decades. Didn't avoid work, he avoided pretending to be something he wasn't. He embraced his messiness, and from there he created. Manson argues that the modern world has sold us a lie, that if we just try hard enough, stay positive enough, hustle enough, we'll finally feel worthy. But that hunger to always fix ourselves is what's making us miserable. Wanting a positive experience is, in itself, a negative experience. The more we chase happiness, the more we reinforce our unhappiness. The more we strive to be special, the more average we feel. It's a cruel irony, a psychological trap we set for ourselves every day. Think about social media. Every post is curated, filtered, crafted to scream, "Look at how amazing my life is." But beneath it is insecurity. The very act of proving your happiness reveals your fear that you don't have it. It's like standing in front of a mirror, repeating "I'm confident" over and over until you cry. Manson doesn't hold back in calling out this nonsense. He says, "Stop trying so hard. Stop caring so much about being something you're not." He's not telling you to be apathetic or lazy. He's telling you to be honest, to stop performing. Because trying too hard is exhausting and inauthentic, and worst of all, it doesn't work. Picture this. You're at a party. One guest is desperately trying to be liked, laughing too loud, complimenting everyone, spinning big stories. You can smell the effort on them, and it's off-putting. Then there's the other guest. Calm, real, not trying to impress anyone, and people gravitate to them, because there's power in not trying too hard. There's honesty there. Why do we fall into this trap? Because we're taught from the moment we can think that we're not enough. Be happier, be more productive, be more successful, be special, be exceptional. It's a constant drumbeat that says, as you are is not okay. So we keep chasing some perfected version of ourselves, endlessly moving the goalposts of our own worth. But what if you didn't have to? What if you could say, I'm flawed, I'm human, I'm enough. It's not because you're perfect, but because perfection was never the requirement for being worthy of love, respect, or meaning. That idea feels like giving up at first, but it's not. It's the start of real freedom. Manson tells on himself too. He spent years as a blogger trying to be impressive. He wanted everyone to see how smart he was, how successful. But the harder he tried to craft that image, the less people cared. It was only when he admitted his failures, his fears, his messiness, that readers connected with him. Because people don't want perfection, they want authenticity. He also doesn't shy away from mocking the self-help industry. He says most of it just teaches you to obsess better, visualize harder, manifest more. Always keep that smile on your face. But that's just sweeping all your real problems under the rug until you're tripping over the lumps. Instead, he offers something radical in its simplicity. You, Dante, need to fix yourself to be okay. You just need to decide what really matters. It's actually worth giving a fuck about. Because you only have so many fucks to give in this lifetime. And wasting them on looking good, being impressive, avoiding pain, that's the surest path to misery. If this sounds a bit Buddhist, that's not a coincidence. The idea echoes that old teaching. Desire is suffering. The relentless craving for life to be different is what torments us. Unlike a monk telling you to renounce everything, Manson says you should choose carefully. You'll always care about something. Just make sure it's something that matters. So pause for a moment. Ask yourself, what are you chasing that's making you miserable? What would happen if you stopped trying so hard to be someone you're not? Whose approval are you really seeking? And what would you do if you didn't have to prove anything? Because there's something liberating in the idea that you can stop, you can let go. You don't have to be exceptional to be worthy. When you accept your flaws, you stop wasting energy on performance and can finally start living. This first chapter is the foundation of the entire book. It's not about avoiding life's problems. It's about choosing better problems. It's not about never feeling pain. It's about embracing the pain that matters. Because when you stop giving a fuck about being perfect, you can finally give a fuck about what's real. Trying too hard to be happy makes you miserable. Peace comes from accepting your flaws, being honest about what matters, and choosing your struggles wisely. Life is a struggle. The sooner you accept that, the freer you become. At some point, you have to stop asking whether life is supposed to be easy. It isn't. It was never meant to be. Life is full of pain, failure, disappointment, confusion, and that's not a glitch in the system. That is the system. But here's the secret Mark Manson lays out. It's not about eliminating problems. It's about choosing better ones. Because no matter what you do, no matter how successful or happy or enlightened you become, problems don't disappear. They just get upgraded. Manson says, happiness comes from solving problems, not avoiding them, not denying them, solving them. We often think that if we just make enough money, find the right relationship, get the perfect job or body or life, we'll finally be free of problems. But that's a fantasy. Problems are constant. What changes is the nature of them. If you're poor, your problems are how do I eat? If you're rich, your problems might be how do I protect my wealth? Or why do I feel so empty even with all this? Different scale, but still problems. The idea that problems equal failure is one of the most damaging beliefs we carry. We feel ashamed when life is hard, like we've messed up. But Manson flips the script. Struggling isn't a sign of weakness. It's the human condition. What really matters is the quality of the struggle. Are you solving meaningful problems, or just circling the same petty ones over and over? He tells the story of Dave Mustaine, the man kicked out of Metallic just before they became one of the biggest bands in history. Mustaine was devastated. He vowed revenge, worked furiously to create something better, and went on to form the band Megadeth, selling over 25 million records. By almost any measure, a wild success. But in an interview, Mustaine admitted he still considered himself a failure. Why? Because he wasn't Metallic. Now contrast that with Pete Best, the drummer who was kicked out of the Beatles right before they became global icons. Years later, Best said getting kicked out was the best thing that ever happened to him. He found love, family, peace. He moved on. He let go. He chose different problems to care about. Same event. Two radically different responses. Why? Because of the values they chose to measure their lives by. It's the quiet force running beneath this chapter. Our values. We all have them, consciously or not. And they determine what we give a fuck about. If your value is to be the biggest rock star in the world, then anything less than that will feel like failure. But if your value is to live authentically, to build something you're proud of, to love and be loved, then your problems will look very different. So the question isn't just, what's wrong with my life? It's, what problems am I choosing? Are they growth-oriented? Are they connected to something real? Something that aligns with who you want to be? Or are you solving the same shallow nonsense every week trying to get more followers? Worrying about someone's opinion, endlessly scrolling, numbing, avoiding. Manson says this plainly, you're going to suffer. The trick is to suffer for something meaningful. There's dignity in struggle. There's pride in enduring something hard for a reason you believe in. But most people are wasting their energy on battles that don't matter. And the reason they do that is because they inherited their values from somewhere else, from parents, from media, from culture. You were taught what to care about before you were even old enough to question it. So now you might be chasing money, fame, validation, not because those things bring fulfillment, but because that's what you were told matters. But if you don't choose your values consciously, the world will choose them for you. And that's where the real suffering begins. Not from pain itself, but from feeling that the pain is pointless. That's why Manson keeps hammering this one truth. Don't avoid problems. Pick better ones. Decide what's truly worth the struggle. Choose values that are yours, not just culturally convenient. Because a life without problems isn't possible, but a life with problems that are worth it. That's freedom. So he challenges us. What are you solving for in your life right now? Is it something you're proud of? Something meaningful? Or are you stuck in a cycle of trying to feel good, be liked, get ahead without ever asking why? Because if you choose your struggles wisely, everything changes. Even the hard stuff starts to feel like progress. Even the pain starts to feel like purpose. And maybe, just maybe, that's where real happiness lives. Not in comfort, but in meaning. You will always have problems. The key is to find the problems you want to have. It's the ones that make the struggle worthwhile. Because happiness is not what you feel when your problems go away. It's what you feel when you're finally working through the right ones. We don't control what happens to us, but we do control how we interpret it. Imagine you're holding a snow globe. Inside is a little world that you can shake, spin, or set down carefully. But no matter what you do, you can't change the scene inside it's fixed. What you can change is how you see it. Tilt it, shake it, look at it from another angle. That's your power. In this chapter, Manson introduces one of the simplest but most liberating ideas in the book. You are always choosing. Even when it feels like you have no choice, you're choosing how to interpret events, how to react, what meaning to assign. This is not a message of blame, it's one of radical responsibility. He shares the story of William James, often called the father of American psychology. James was chronically ill, depressed, and suicidal as a young man. He decided to run a kind of experiment, he would assume, for 1 year. That he was 100% responsible for everything that happened in his life, his feelings, his reactions, his choices. Not responsible in the sense of causing it all, but in how he chose to deal with it. That experiment transformed him. It didn't cure him instantly, but it gave him agency. Manson makes the same argument in his own blunt style. Shit happens. Unfair things. Random tragedies. betrayal, loss. But while you don't control those events, you do control your response. You choose what story you tell yourself. You choose what those events mean about you and your life. That choice is your power. But here's the catch. People resist this. You want to blame other people, or luck, or society, because it's easier. It feels better to say, I'm stuck because of them. Responsibility feels heavy. But ironically, taking responsibility is the only way to feel truly free. Because if you're responsible, you can change. It's like being lost in a forest. You can sit down and wait for rescue, cursing the unfairness of it all, or you can start figuring out a way out. You didn't choose to be lost, but you can choose your next step. Manson doesn't romanticize this. He knows it's hard. He gives examples from his own life, relationships he ruined, businesses he failed at, not because he's proud, but because he wants to model what ownership looks like. Saying it's my responsibility doesn't mean you read a blame for everything that happened. It means you're accountable for what you do next. This idea can make you uncomfortable, supposed to. We all have stories about why our lives are the way they are. My parents messed me up. Society is rigged. My partner betrayed me. My boss hates me. And sometimes those stories are true. But the danger is in getting stuck there. When you make the story the final word, you give away your power. Manson pushes us to see that even if none of it was your fault, it's still your responsibility. Because no one is coming to live your life for you. No one can choose for you. It's like inheriting a house in disrepair. You didn't build it, you didn't choose it, but now it's yours. You can renovate it, you can demolish it. Or you can sit in the dark and complain about the cracks. Talks about a friend whose son died tragically. No one would ever say she was to blame, but she still had to choose how to live with that grief. Would she let it destroy her? Or would she find a way to carry it and keep living? That choice, horrible as it is all we ever really have. And this is the difference between fault and responsibility. Fault is about the past. Responsibility is about the future. Blame all you want, but at the end of the day, you still have to choose how to respond. That's the price of freedom. He uses a simple example. Imagine someone drops a baby on your doorstep. Not your fault, but now it's your responsibility. You can leave it there. Call for help. Care for it yourself. But you can't pretend it's not your problem. That's life. Random, messy, unfair. But your power lies in how you respond. And the truth is, the people who own their responses even when life is crueler, the ones who transform. This idea might feel cold at first, but it's actually incredibly compassionate, because it says you're not doomed by what happened to you. You're not defined by your worst day. You get to decide the meaning, the next move, the kind of person you want to be in the face of it all. Manson wants us to see that there's no freedom without responsibility. Victimhood feels safer, but it's a cage. Responsibility feels heavy, but it's the key. So ask yourself, what are you refusing to take responsibility for in your life? What painful truth are you avoiding by blaming someone else? What would change if you chose to own it, if it wasn't your fault? Because when you claim that responsibility, you stop waiting for the world to change and start changing yourself. And in that shift from blame to ownership, everything is possible. You don't control what happens to you, but you always control what you do about it. A choice is your greatest power. Certainty is comforting, but it's also the enemy of growth. Picture yourself standing on the edge of a cliff in heavy fog. You can't see the bottom. You don't know if it's 2 feet or 200. Would you jump? Most of us wouldn't. That uncertainty paralyzes us. We crave knowing. We want the world to be neatly labeled, explained, controlled. But life doesn't work that way, and pretending it does is one of our greatest sources of suffering. Mark Manson says we're all addicted to certainty. We want to be right, to have answers, to cling to beliefs that make us feel safe. But here's the truth he insists on. You are wrong about many things. So am I. So is everyone. And the sooner you can accept that, the sooner you can actually learn. He tells the story of being a know-I-tall blogger who argued with readers about everything. He thought being right all the time was the goal. But he realized it was just ego, a way to avoid feeling insecure or vulnerable. Because admitting you might be wrong feels like standing on that foggy cliff, unsteady, exposed. Why do we resist it so much? Because certainty is comforting. It's the warm blanket we wrap around our fears. If we're sure of who we are, what's true, how the world works, we don't have to face the chaos. But that comfort has a cost. It locks us in place. It keeps us from questioning, growing, adapting. Think about the people who doubled down when proven wrong. They don't want to change their minds. It feels like death to their ego. Politics is an easy example. Entire groups defining themselves by never admitting error, by treating doubt as betrayal. But it happens in our personal lives too. Relationships, when we so sure we rewrite that we can hear the other person. In work, when we refuse feedback. In the stories we tell ourselves about who we are. Manson doesn't want you to live in constant confusion, unable to choose anything. He wants you to hold your beliefs lightly, to recognize that everything you know is a provisional best guess. That your mind is a map, and the map is not the territory. He shares a personal moment of realizing how many times in his life he'd have been dead wrong about his career, about relationships, about himself. He used to see those moments as humiliating failures. Now he sees them as signs of growth, because being wrong isn't a bug in the system, it's the system working. Think of scientists. The best ones are wrong all the time. They propose theories, test them, revise them, discard them. Progress comes from error. But most of us treat being wrong as a moral failing, something to avoid at all costs. But imagine living without ever questioning your beliefs. You're frozen in time. You read the same person at 50 you were at 15. That might feel safe, but it's not living. It's clinging. Manson says, our beliefs are often just stories we tell ourselves to avoid pain. Stories like, I'm unlovable. I'm always right. I can't change. They keep us from facing the messy truth that we don't really know much at all. He calls for something radical, intellectual humility. The courage to say, I don't know. To question your own assumptions. To admit you're wrong quickly and often. Not because you're worthless, but because that's how you get better. He also warns about the flip side. When people make uncertainty an identity. The person who's so proud of being open-minded that they refuse to commit to anything. That's just another avoidance strategy. The goal isn't to be paralyzed by doubt at S. To move forward while knowing you might be wrong. It's like navigating with a compass instead of a GPS. The compass doesn't give you step-by-step directions. It just points north. You still have to figure out the terrain as you go. So what does this look like in practice? It's listening more than you talk, asking questions instead of making declarations, saying I could be wrong, changing your mind when new evidence appears. It's also having compassion for others' certainty, realizing that when people cling desperately to being right, it's usually fear talking. Manson says that embracing uncertainty isn't about being lost forever. It's about accepting that you'll always be at least a little lost and that it's okay. Because only by admitting you don't know can you start to learn. So ask yourself, what are you absolutely certain about? Your political views, your self-image, your resentments? What if you're wrong? What would that mean? Could you live with the possibility? Because admitting you're wrong isn't weakness. It's freedom. Freedom from defending old mistakes. It's freedom to grow. Freedom to see the world and yourself with fresh eyes. You will never be 100% right about anything. The goal is to become a little less wrong over time. That's how you evolve. Failure is the way forward. Always. Failure, just the word makes people flinch. It's the boogeyman in the closet, the monster under the bed. We avoid it, deny it, numb ourselves to it. But Mark Manson doesn't mince words. You cannot avoid failure. You can only choose which failures you're willing to endure. He wants us to see that failure isn't the opposite of success. It's the path to it. The very idea that success means no mistakes is one of the most toxic lies we believe. Manson tears it apart with brutal honesty. If you want to achieve anything meaningful, you have to be willing to fail. Repeatedly, publicly, sometimes spectacularly. He tells the story of his own failures, a string of online businesses that flopped. Articles that no one read, humiliating personal moments. At the time, each one felt like proof he was worthless. But looking back, he sees that each failure taught him something essential. Without them, he wouldn't have improved. It's like going to the gym. Your muscles only grow by tearing. No strain, no gain. You can avoid the pain by staying on the couch, but you'll stay weak. Life works the same way. Manson says most people want the rewards without the struggle. They want the body without the workouts, the success without the rejection, the wisdom without the pain. But But that's not how it works. Anything meaningful carries risk. Introduces what he calls the do something principle. When you're stuck, do anything. Action isn't just the effect of motivation, it's also the cause. People wait to feel confident or inspired before they act, but that's backwards. You act first, and then the confidence follows. He illustrates this with a story about overcoming writer's block. He didn't wait to feel ready, forced himself to write badly, to get the words on the page. Through that process, he found his voice. The willingness to be bad is what eventually made him good. This is the hard truth. You can't think your way into success. You have to act. You have to risk looking foolish. You have to be bad at something long enough to get better. Manson talks about how our fear of failure is often rooted in ego. We don't want to look stupid. We want to protect our image. But that image is a prison. If you're too worried about protecting it, you'll never take the risks you need to grow. He gives the example of entrepreneurs who treat their companies like their babies. They're so emotionally attached they can't see when it's not working. They won't pivot. They won't admit mistakes. So the company dies. Ego kills adaptability. It's not just business. Think about relationships. The person who refuses to apologize, who can't admit they're wrong, who would rather be right than be connected. That's failure aversion at its worst. Manson pushes us to see that real growth requires failing well. Not avoiding it, not wallowing in it, but learning from it. He says that's the real metric of success. How well you can fail. He uses an analogy of feedback loops. Life constantly gives you feedback. If you avoid failure, you avoid feedback. You stay blind to your own limitations. You can't improve what you don't acknowledge. He even jokes that success is just moving from one level of failure to another, slightly less awful level. You never stop failing. You just get better at handling it. But there's a deeper layer here. Manson says many people think their problems are unique, catastrophic, unsolvable, but they're not. They're ordinary. Everyone is failing at something. The difference is whether you're willing to face it. He wants us to embrace a kind of humble realism. You're not special in your fears. Your failures don't mean you're broken. They mean you're human. He even argues that people who never fail are the ones to worry about, because it means they're not trying anything difficult. They're not growing. They're stuck in a safe, comfortable rut. This chapter is a call to arms. Stop trying to avoid failure. Choose your failures wisely and move toward them, because that's where life is. In the mess, in the risk, in the honest attempt. He asks us to think, what are you so afraid of failing at that you want to even try? What would happen if you did it badly on purpose? If you let go of the need to be perfect and just took the next step? Because if you want to change your life, you have to be willing to fail again and again. Failure isn't a detour on the road to success. It is the road. You can't avoid pain. You can't avoid risk. But you can choose to make it mean something, to let it teach you, to let it shape you into someone stronger, wiser, more compassionate. That's the gift of failure. And it's a gift you can only receive if you're brave enough to unwrap it. If suffering is inevitable, might as well choose what's worth suffering for. We spend so much of our lives asking the wrong question. How do I avoid pain? Mark Manson says the better question is, what pain am I willing to endure? Because no matter what you choose in life, you're choosing a form of suffering. There's no such thing as a pain-free existence. There's only the pain you find meaningful and the pain you don't. It's a deeply uncomfortable idea. We're taught to chase happiness as if it's a constant state, a finish line. We imagine once we get the perfect job, the perfect partner, the perfect body, we'll be free from struggle. But Manson argues, that's a fantasy. Think about any goal you've ever achieved. Was it without problems? No. It just gave you better problems. If you get rich, you don't stop having problems. You get rich people problems. If you fall in love, you don't eliminate conflict. You get relationship problems. There's no problem-free option, only trade-offs. Manson says this is the foundation of values. Your values aren't what you say you want, or what you're willing to suffer for. He gives the example of wanting to be a rock star, spent years trying to make it happen, okay? But he eventually realized he didn't want the lifestyle, the constant travel, the hustle for gigs, the rejection. He liked the idea of being a rock star, but he didn't want to pay the price. That's the moment of truth for any ambition. Do you want the struggle that comes with it? Do you want the sweat, the boredom, the fear, the failures. Because if you don't want the process, you don't really want the result. He challenges readers to think about people they admire. Entrepreneurs, artists, athletes, they all suffer. The question isn't how to avoid suffering, it's whether the suffering is worth it. Manson makes this idea personal by admitting the many things he gave up. He didn't become a musician even though he loved music. He didn't become a banker even though it paid well. He chose the struggle of writing, the anxiety of sharing his thoughts with the world, the rejection and criticism. That's the pain he was willing to endure. It's a sobering realization. We all want certain rewards, but we rarely examine the costs. We fantasize about being fit without wanting to work out, about being successful without risking failure, about being loved without being vulnerable. It says the truth is simple but harsh. You can't have a pain-free life, but you can choose a meaningful pain. This is where values come in. Manson says many people have shitty values, like always feeling good about themselves, being right all the time, staying comfortable, avoiding conflict. These values lead to shallow, unfulfilling lives. Better values are grounded in reality. They're flexible, socially constructive, and controllable. Like honesty, responsibility, curiosity, courage. These values don't eliminate pain, they make it worthwhile. Imagine two people in a relationship. One values always being right, the other values understanding. Who will have the better relationship? The second person isn't avoiding pain. They're choosing the pain of hard conversations, humility, compromise. But that pain leads to connection. Or think about work. Someone with a shitty value of looking impressive will choose to avoid failure at all costs. They'll play it safe. Someone with the value of growth will choose the pain of risking embarrassment, trying new things, asking dumb questions. Manson argues that your life's quality depends on the quality of the problems you choose. This isn't pessimism, it's empowerment. Because if you get to choose your problems, you get to choose the shape of your life. He gives the example of himself in college, partying all the time, avoiding responsibility, wondering why he felt empty. The problem wasn't that life was hard. It was that his values were crap. He was avoiding meaningful struggle. So he asks us, what pain do you want in your life? What are you willing to struggle for? What values will guide those choices? Because at the end of the day, happiness isn't about avoiding pain. It's about finding the pain you're glad to endure. The pain that aligns with who you want to be. Imagine training for a marathon. It's the blisters, the sore muscles, the early mornings, it all sucks, but it's chosen. It's meaningful, it's pain you own, or parenting. Sleep deprivation, worry, self-sacrifice, but it's love. It's a pain that matters. Manson isn't telling you to seek out suffering for its own sake. He's telling you that you will suffer, so choose wisely. Don't avoid the question. Dan T. Lie to yourself about what you want if you not willing to pay the price. He writes with the tone of someone shaking you awake. Stop chasing a life without problems. Choose better problems, because in the end, the quality of your life isn't determined by the joys you experience, by the problems you're willing to solve. So ask yourself, what pain are you avoiding? What would it mean to choose it on purpose? Because that choice is the only real freedom you have, and it's the one that defines everything else. The more you try to impress people, the less impressed they'll be. We all want to be liked. We all want to be admired. We want people to see us as successful, attractive, intelligent, the kinds of people who have it all together. It's a natural instinct. We wear our achievements like badges, constantly calculating what others will think of us. But Mark Manson hits us with a brutal truth. Trying to impress others is a trap. The more you try to be someone you're not, the more you lose sight of who you really are, and the more others will see through it. In this chapter, Manson explores the power of embracing authenticity, the things you're actually proud of, the values you genuinely care about. The passions you're willing to suffer for, those are the things worth focusing on. Not the surface-level impressiveness that fades the moment someone sees behind the curtain. He starts with a story about how we all care too much about what other people think. Whether it's a job title, a social media post, or the car we drive, we're all trying to project an image. But the problem with that image is it's just a mask, a carefully constructed lie we wear to get approval. Manson gives a powerful example from his own life. He talks about how he used to define himself by his success online. He wrote articles that were popular because they told people what they wanted to hear. Things like how to be successful in life or how to be attractive to women. He felt on top of the world when people praised him for these superficial ideas. But eventually he realized that he wasn't proud of his own work. He was just playing to an audience's expectations. He wasn't being himself. That's the crux of the matter. When you're focused on impressing others, you're constantly betraying yourself. You'll never satisfy people's expectations because they're always shifting. What's impressive today is irrelevant tomorrow. So why build your life on a house of cards? Manson's message is simple but powerful. You have to be willing to be unimpressive in other people's eyes in order to be true to yourself. When you stop pretending, you free yourself from the constant need for validation. He's not advocating for complete disregard of other people's opinions. That would be naive and arrogant. What he's saying is that you need to choose whose opinion matters. He talks about the famous philosopher Søren Kierkegaard, who said, "The most common form of despair is not being who you are. Most people spend their lives chasing the approval of others, trying to meet external standards only to end up deeply unhappy." Manson goes on to say that people who live with authenticity aren't those who never care what others think. They're the ones who care about a few people who really matter to them: close friends, mentors, family. And when they care about others' opinions, it's because those people matter, not because the opinions are a way to gain status. This doesn't mean you should stop caring about how you come across. It means you should be selective about who you care about impressing. Who do you want to matter, and why? Manson gives an example of a friend of his who, instead of aiming to please everyone, focused on finding people who shared his values. He stopped pretending to be someone he wasn't, stopped trying to make a grand show of things. He simply invested in deep relationships with people who saw him for who he truly was. And the funny thing is, those are the relationships that actually gave him the validation he craved in the first place. Think of a famous musician. First, they may try to appeal to the masses, write catchy songs, wear flashy clothes, whatever it takes to get noticed. But over time, if they don't focus on their own creativity and unique voice, they'll burn out. The most memorable artists are those who are unapologetically themselves. Their authenticity becomes their strength. Manson isn't just talking about superficial impressiveness. He's talking about building a life that you can be proud of, a life that's true to your values, your passions, your quirks. Because no matter what mask you wear, people can tell when you're being real. They can sense it, and realness is magnetic. Manson warns us, those authenticity isn't easy. It means being vulnerable, exposing yourself to criticism, and being willing to risk rejection. You can't be authentic and also shield yourself from judgment. It's a trade-off. But that's where true connection lives, when you stop pretending. He also points out the irony of trying to impress others. The more you try, the more you make yourself into a commodity, a product to be consumed. But when you stop caring so much about appearances, you open the door to real relationships, deeper friendships, and a more meaningful life. To wrap it all up, Manson encourages us to ask, who am I pretending to be in order to get approval? What part of yourself are you hiding to please others? What would happen if you stopped pretending? Because true power comes not from impressing others, but from living in alignment with who you really are. It's about the quiet confidence that comes with knowing you don't need anyone's approval to feel worthy. When you stop trying to impress, you start living. You start becoming yourself. And that's the most impressive thing you can ever be. The more we care about something, the more we will suffer for it. It sounds strange, doesn't it? The more you care about something, the more you'll suffer for it. You might even resist the idea. How can caring about something lead to pain? Isn't caring what makes life meaningful? Mark Manson turns this idea upside down, making us reconsider something we take for granted. He argues that all of our deepest passions, our careers, relationships, creative projects, come with their own brand of suffering. And this suffering isn't something to avoid. It's part of the deal. The catch with anything that matters is that it demands sacrifice, effort, and sometimes even heartache. Manson opens the chapter with a candid conversation about his own relationship with writing. He admits that, at times, writing felt like a torture. His ideas weren't always well received. His efforts often went unnoticed, and the constant pressure to create felt overwhelming. But despite all the frustration, he chose that suffering. And this was key. He didn't just care about writing as an abstract idea. He cared about it enough to endure the pain that came with it. That's how passion works. Think about the things you care about in your life. Your friends, your career, your dreams. They all come with sacrifices. If you want to build something that's truly yours, you'll have to suffer through obstacles, failure, setbacks. You'll have moments where it feels like everything is falling apart, where things feel pointless. And that's okay, because it's part of the process. But here's where Manson drops a profound insight. We often try to avoid suffering. We pretend we can escape the discomfort. Look for quick fixes, easier paths, ways to minimize the pain. But that avoidance leads to emptiness. If you refuse to endure the necessary pain, you end up with a shallow life. One that's disconnected from the very things that give you meaning. This is why so many people feel stuck. They want the rewards without the struggle. They want love without vulnerability, success without failure, freedom without discipline. But the world doesn't work like that. To truly care about something means embracing the pain that comes with it. The more you care, the more you'll suffer, but the rewards are infinitely more meaningful. Manson shares a story of an artist friend who was deeply committed to creating art, even though the process often left him discouraged. Yet, despite the frustration, the artist never gave up, because he knew the suffering was part of his journey. It wasn't about avoiding the discomfort, it was about making peace with it. The more deeply he cared about his art, the more that pain became bearable, even valuable. This idea applies to every area of life. Consider love, for example. Anyone who has ever been in a serious relationship knows that love isn't all roses and happiness. There are tough moments, misunderstandings, arguments, emotional pain, but that is what makes love so profound. The willingness to endure the discomfort, to sit with the awkwardness, to grow through the struggle, that's what makes the love real. Manson challenges us to question, what do you care about so much that you're willing to suffer for it? What would you endure to keep your dream alive? He warns against the danger of a life that avoids suffering entirely. He calls this the soft life, a life where you shield yourself from all pain, seeking only pleasure and ease. It might seem appealing at first, but over time it breeds dissatisfaction, because a life without meaningful suffering lacks depth, it lacks significance. This is why we admire people who have endured hardships, whether it's a groundbreaking scientist, it's a visionary entrepreneur, or a war hero. We don't just admire their success, we admire their willingness to suffer for something larger than themselves. And it's that willingness that makes their achievements truly inspiring. Manson's point is clear. If you want a life full of meaning, you must embrace suffering. Choose the struggle that aligns with your values, the one that brings you growth. If you want a fulfilling career, you'll have to endure the stress, the criticism, the failures. If you want a loving relationship, you'll have to deal with the tough conversations, the disappointments, the sacrifices. But in the end, these are the things that give life its richness. And that suffering isn't something to dread. It's the evidence that you're alive, that you're engaged, that you care deeply enough to show up, to fight, to fail, and to try again. So ask yourself, what are you truly willing to suffer for? What's worth the pain in your life? When you can answer that question, you can stop running from suffering and start living a life with purpose. Because the secret isn't to avoid suffering, it's to choose the right kind of suffering. In the end, life's most important question is, what are you willing to suffer for? This chapter dives into the deep end, exploring what truly matters in life, not the distractions, the fleeting pleasures, or the shallow goals, but the things that are so important to us, we're willing to pay the price. Manson's invitation in this section is clear. Life's real meaning comes from suffering for what we value. Manson starts with a blunt observation. People often fail to understand that life is a series of trade-offs. We choose what we're willing to sacrifice, and the more we care about something, the more we will have to suffer for it. This is a hard truth that many shy away from. But it's also liberating, because it means that if we're struggling, we're doing something right. Struggling for what? That's the real question. He gives us a glimpse into the paradox of happiness. Everyone is searching for it, but happiness doesn't come from avoiding pain. It comes from learning to suffer for the things that matter most. We often think happiness is the absence of hardship, when in reality, happiness is the ability to endure hardship for something meaningful. Think about any person who has achieved greatness. Their success wasn't built on luck. was built on sacrifice, on suffering, on choosing hard paths over easy ones. Manson uses the example of famous athletes, artists, and entrepreneurs, all of whom had to endure rejection, failure, and self-doubt in order to achieve their dreams. They didn't avoid suffering, they chose the right kind of suffering. Manson pushes us to ask, what are you willing to suffer for? What's the thing that, when you think about it, makes the struggle worth it? If you can answer that, you've discovered something essential about yourself. Because when you're clear about your values, the suffering that comes with them becomes more bearable. You endure it because it's aligned with something you deeply care about. It's not just about choosing the hard path for the sake of it, but about finding the purpose that makes that struggle worth it. He points out that the mistake most people make is not that they avoid suffering, but that they suffer for the wrong things. They suffer to impress others, to fit into society's expectations, to live up to an image they don't even want. They choose to care about things that don't align with their true values. This, Manson argues, is where the pain becomes pointless. It's not just painful, it's the wrong kind of pain. And the longer you endure the wrong kind of suffering, the emptier your life feels. That's why people get stuck in jobs they hate, in relationships that drain them, in lifestyles that don't suit them. They're willing to suffer, but not for the things that truly matter. The power of this chapter lies in the invitation to evaluate our lives through a different lens. Instead of asking, how do I avoid pain? Ask, what pain am I willing to endure for something meaningful? The pain of growth, the pain of sacrifice, the pain of doing what it takes to become who you truly want to be. Manson encourages us to embrace suffering, but to do so consciously. To choose what we care about so deeply that we're willing to take on the discomfort, the risks, and the inevitable failures. Because that's where the magic happens. It's where the transformation lies. It's in relationships. For example, it's not about avoiding the tough times. It's about embracing the discomfort that comes with deep emotional connection, the awkwardness of vulnerability, the pain of miscommunication, the sacrifice of compromise. But through these struggles, relationships are built on a deeper foundation. Manson goes on to talk about the dangers of choosing the easy pain, the pain of staying in a job that you hate because it's safe, the pain of remaining in a relationship that isn't fulfilling because you're scared of being alone, the pain of numbing yourself with distractions, comfort, and pleasure. These are the kinds of pain that erode us, that trap us in a life we don't want. The goal isn't to escape pain, it's to choose the right pain, the pain that leads to growth, the pain that comes from pushing yourself, from going after the life you want, no matter how tough the journey gets. Manson concludes with a powerful reflection. It's not about what we're avoiding, but what we're willing to stand up for in the face of hardship. The life we live is the sum of the suffering we choose. The person we become depends on the battles we're willing to fight. He asks us to take a moment and reflect. What are you choosing to suffer for? What is the ultimate price you're willing to pay for what matters most? And when you can answer that question with clarity and conviction, you'll have the roadmap for your life. Because the most important thing is not the struggle itself, but what you choose to fight for. You are always choosing what to care about. We've reached the end of Mark Manson's journey in the subtle art of not giving us CK**. After taking us through the labyrinth of life's inevitable struggles, choices, and sacrifices, he leaves us with one final win, profound idea. What you give a FCK about is the ultimate choice you have. In this chapter, Manson distills everything we've learned into a final manifesto, a simple but powerful guide to living intentionally. The central premise is that we always have control over what we choose to care about. The key to living a fulfilled life isn't about avoiding suffering, it's about consciously choosing what we are willing to suffer for. Manson revisits the idea of values, the guiding compass for everything we do. What you value will determine how you approach every challenge in life. If you have poor values like valuing comfort or external validation, you'll face shallow pain and dissatisfaction. But if you choose good values like honesty, responsibility, and growth, you'll find that the struggles you face are worth the effort. He then breaks down the difference between healthy and unhealthy values. Healthy values are those that are reality-based, socially constructive, and immediate and controllable. Unhealthy values are those that are based on fantasies, external rewards, and things beyond your control. Manson encourages us to look at our values and ask, are these truly worth suffering for? Are you valuing things that bring you closer to who you want to be? Or are you valuing things that, in the end, won't matter? He also talks about the role of death in shaping our values. Life is short and death is inevitable. This isn't meant to be morbid. Rather, it's a call to live fully, to recognize that the time you have is limited. Manson urges us to ask, how do you want to be remembered? What are you doing with your limited time? What will be the legacy you leave? This chapter also emphasizes the importance of accepting that we won't always win. Life is not about achieving some ultimate state of perfection. It's about accepting that failure, rejection, and struggle are part of the process. It's not about avoiding pain. It's about choosing the right pain and growing through it. He challenges us to let go of unrealistic expectations. The idea that we can have it all, be flawless, and never experience discomfort. Instead, we need to face the reality of who we are and what we can actually achieve. The true key to happiness, Manson argues, is giving a F*** about the things that matter and letting go of everything else. As the book nears its close, Manson delivers his final manifesto in the form of a series of questions. What are you willing to suffer for? What values are worth committing to? What are you going to do with your time and energy on this planet? These questions don't have easy answers. Manson's point is that the answers are yours to choose. The quality of your life is determined by what you choose to care about, what you choose to invest in, and what you're willing to struggle for. Manson ends by suggesting that we must constantly check ourselves, recalibrate our values, and ask whether we're truly living the life we want to live. Life doesn't just happen to us. We're the creators of our own stories. So, choose wisely, choose consciously, and choose in alignment with who you really are. This is Manson's ultimate message. The life you have is the life you've chosen to care about. The F***s you give, the battles you choose, the pain you endure, these are your choices. And if you choose wisely, the suffering you face will transform into something meaningful, something worth living for. So, as you walk away from this book, ask yourself, what are you willing to suffer for?